Hi, my name's Amy Molloy. I'm the author of Wise Child, a practical guide to raising kids with sensitive hearts and smart souls in a world they were reborn to save. It's a bit of a mouthful. So, past life parenting is the idea that our kids have been reborn from previous lifetimes. And not only that, but that is happening at a prevalence that is greater than higher than ever before. And that our kids of this generation, of my children's generation, have this power to remember their past lives and are much more tuned in and tapped in to not only the wisdom of their past lives, but also the fears and the hang ups and the connections that they can carry forward with them from old lifetimes into this lifetime. And that if we as parents and caregivers can actually empower them to tap into that wisdom, it would not only make them like happier, more grounded and powerful children, but create incredible harmony in our families and also have the potential to completely shift our world and our perception of it. To past life parenting out of desperation, if not anything. I had just given birth to my second child. I had noticed just something different about him than my daughter. He just seemed incredibly unsettled, unhappy, had allergies. And I just kept saying to my husband over and over again, he just doesn't seem to want to be here. He just seems so unhappy. And I didn't know what to do to help him. And as a typical like A-type perfectionist, ambitious mama, that just I just didn't know how to sit with that. Then I found my way into a past life therapy session. And during that session, I was given a complete understanding of who my little boy was, not only in this lifetime, but in previous lifetime. I was not only given an understanding, but I was able to access like a blueprint then of how to parent him. And it involved a completely different style of parenting to how I was raising my little girl and how I would go to raise my third child. And this understanding that what if we could actually look at our kids not as a blank slate, not as only as these like tiny little babies and toddlers and children who are accruing wisdom in this life, but also everything that they're bringing forward from previous lifetimes. And that is a completely new parenting paradigm. It also completely shakes up the idea that because we are older, adults are wiser. What if we could actually say, like, in many ways, my kids are an awful lot wiser than I am. And that for me provides instant relief as a parent. Because it's such a relief to know that I don't need all the answers and my kids know far more than I give them credit for. And that is such a shake up in the old way of doing things. It's really about admitting that this generation of kids are far different than the generations before them. Teachers are saying it, parents are saying it, therapists are saying it. These kids are hyper eloquent, they're super intuitive, they are energetically mature in a way that we and everyone older than me were not. They come out with stuff, and I'm sure if you're a parent you've heard it too, which makes your jaw drop. I've had conversations with kids about life and death and gender and sexuality and money and politics that have completely shaken up how I've seen the world and erased my own fears of like time scarcity and impermanence and all these fears that we as grown-ups have, like these staggering things that I write in the book that a 10-year-old has said about death and why we shouldn't fear it, or loss, and why we should shift and change how we grieve it. And yet there is still this understanding that adults know more. Now, of course, saying that, our kids cannot be in charge of our family. Like, if I left my kids to run this household, we'd be having ice cream for dinner every night. We'd have the TV on until midnight. No one would ever go to bed until they fell asleep on the floor. So it's learning and discovering ways to give them autonomy within boundaries, to listen to them when they're like tapping into this wise wisdom, but not to listen to them when they're saying that I want to have chocolate for breakfast. And the book has really practical advice around doing that, how to tap into our kids' wisdom whilst creating boundaries and safety around them, how to teach them about energy hygiene and trusting their intuition, but also still function in the world when we need to get them out the door for school or get them to a doctor's appointment. We can't just let them run the show. The benefits of past life parenting, well, I can talk about how it's helped me as a parent. It brought the fun back into our family. My mum, who visits me once a year from England, I live in Australia, last time she came, she turned to me and said, "You seem to be enjoying your kids. You're enjoying spending time with them." And she really had tapped into something there. She was right. Because when I could shift this old hierarchical idea that I, as a parent, was up there and my child was down here, and bring us all together into one nervous system and one hive of wisdom, then everything just seemed to work. And that's not to say that we don't have the really difficult days as a parents and the tantrums and the sleepless nights, but it's taken the heat out of them, and it's added patience and empathy and understanding and teamwork and collaboration, and just expanded the love in this household so much. Because instead of seeing a child as just a 5-year-old, just a 6-year-old, just an 8-year-old, a difficult teenager, or being dramatic, or all these labels we put on our kids, we're seeing them as whole souls and complex souls that have this wisdom, hundreds of years of wisdom experiencing that they're bringing forward. So how can we melt all of that into our family's ecosystem and create homes and hopefully societies that embrace all that our children are and all the wisdom they have, and support them with all the depth of their fears, rather than shrinking them down to just kids. The biggest surprise and the best surprise for me of this book is how it's been embraced mainstream. When I was writing this book, was like, I know this is a wacky out there concept. I am very used to writing about wacky outside concepts. And I knew that the book would be powerful through word of mouth kind of ripple effect, but I wasn't sure how the mass media and the mass mainstream would embrace it. But boy, was I wrong. I just feel like this is the time where people are looking for answers, where even the most skeptical of us are having to admit the world is changing rapidly. These kids are different to any children we've seen before. And so we have to rethink how to raise them. We have to rethink how to live around them and work with them. And we as parents can feel desperate. And I'm telling you that shifting the hierarchy in our family and having our family as this collaborative space has been such a relief. That, when a relative of ours died, instead of thinking of how I could shield my kids, I sat down with my 6-year-old and my 7-year-old and we talked about death, and they dropped knowledge bombs to me that completely shifted my grief and opened my eyes. And the same, we talk about, all the hot button topics that we've been taught to shield our kids from. They teach me every day about gender and money and how to see the world and how to take care of the planet. My little girl, because we live in Australia, talks about caring for country, and she's 4. And I see the wisdom that she's bringing forward, and it gives me so much hope for what our generation can do in the future if we teach them to have a voice, to appreciate their own wisdom, to tap into their intuition, and to finding a new way of existing in this sometimes crazy world. And I hope Wise Child will do just that. It's a new roadmap for parents, And I think our kids will thank us for it.